When I was working at a dead-end job as a telemarketer, I learned a few things about selling stuff over the phone, but one major thing I took away from that job is how boring and long the hours are. I worked 5 to 6 days a week with 9-hour work shifts each day, making slightly above minimum wage. It wasn't a very pretty job, and my biggest issue was the fact that I was stuck in a cubicle all day with literally nothing to do. Now, of course, I had a hobby of playing video games and making LARP weapons and general LARPing stuff, but you kinda can't do those things on the floor because A, you might break something if you swing a foam sword around, and B, jobs hate technology. Seriously, what would a copy of Mario Kart do for my productivity when I've literally gone entire days without speaking to a single person? And it wasn't like I didn't know how to pause a game anyway. Can we start enacting some common sense rules wherein if it doesn't hurt productivity, you can do it? That should seriously be a thing that jobs do. You can't listen to music because you need your ears when telemarketing, and you can't draw because writing utensils were not allowed on the sales floor because they felt you might write down someone's credit card numbers, and I couldn't write stories for the exact same reason. Well, there goes every single hobby I had at the time. Was there anything that I could do? Well, yeah, I could read, but as much as I enjoyed World War Z, I've always been an action guy, and well, novels are not particularly good at giving us some action. So my attention turned towards comic books. I stuck to my comfort zones and decided to pick up every single World of Warcraft comic out there because WoW was a universe that I was very familiar with. Yes, I owned every single World of Warcraft comic published by Wildstorm. No, I'm not kidding.
And I mean every single last one of them.
I even bought all of the mangas, ranging from that awesome Death Knight story to the "oh my god, is this over yet?" Sunwell trilogy. But it was inevitable that I would eventually run out of reading material for World of Warcraft stuff that involved sequential art. I mean, yeah, I could go back to reading novels and stuff, but dang it, I was already hooked on comic books, so I decided to branch into the more mainstream stuff and pick up some superhero books. Now, me being a newbie into the comic book world, I had no idea that you don't need to read every single comic preceding to understand the ongoing story. Again, I was a newbie and a bit of an idiot, so give me a break there. So I decided to instead go with a more recent universe, like Marvel's Ultimate Universe. I heard all about it and it all sounded relatively interesting, so I figured I'd give it a good old college try. And I found myself falling in love with it. I don't want to get into too much detail, but these books really helped me out through some rough patches. My first full-time job, my first apartment, bills to pay, and it was a general pain in the ass to deal with this stuff because it was essentially the real life beating me down. I had never had to deal with that before, and these comics really helped me pull through it all. I mean, they gave me something to look forward to every day when I went into work. My boring, boring, boring job became fun because I was intrigued in reading about these characters. Again, it wasn't like I wasn't working, it's just the job was dull and we often had a hostile environment from upper management. So these books really made me enjoy coming to a job that I technically hated. I took bags and boxes of them with me in case some of my other coworkers wanted to read them too, because I wanted to share my enjoyment with them and keep up the company morale, because essentially, well, they became fun. And I didn't read these comics at home because I always wanted to have a surplus of reading material on hand, ready to go whenever I finish another book. Personal history aside, what is the Ultimate Universe, you ask? Well, I wanted to go over my personal history with the comics so you can understand my feelings for them first. You know, so you can see where I came from. They were a highlight of my day, and when you work 5 days a week from 1 p.m. to 10 p.m., you kind of don't have a social life to do anything. Oh yeah. This was my life, essentially. Comic books. Now, I don't want to go into every single detail as to why I left my crappy job, because that's all very personal to me. But anyway, the Ultimate Universe was started in the year 2000 by Marvel Comics. They wanted to use existing characters with a brand new universe and a few new rules to live by. Why? Because they wanted to attract a new reader base by starting off fresh and new, grab the people who like to read comics but are afraid of decades worth of continuity. People exactly like me. Now, like all books, there have been numerous changes to the creative teams, but the head guys behind the Ultimate Universe were 5-time Eisner Award recipient Brian Michael Bendis, multiple Eagle Award winner Warren Ellis, former Marvel Vice President Bill Jemas, and former Marvel Editor-in-Chief Joe Quesada. And because I don't want Spider-Man one more day hanging over me, we're not going to talk about that past this. I promise. And finally, the guy who arguably had the most pull in the Ultimate Universe, 4-time Eisner Award nominee and creator of Kick-Ass, Mark Millar. Now, all these guys have their own unique talents they bring to the table, but creating an entirely different universe alongside the previously ongoing and still very popular main Marvel universe was going to be a big project. A very big project, especially considering that in the past 10 years that they just crawled out of bankruptcy. So this was not going to be easy. However, the Ultimate Universe turned out to be a monumental success, and it still goes on to this day. Opinions as to why and how notwithstanding. Now that we have the creative team out in the open, and my personal history, as well as history as to why the universe was created, we can finally begin looking at the stories. But I warn you, this is going to be a long series. Like, a very long series. If this is not my longest series ever, I will be utterly shocked. Because trust me, strap yourselves in because you're gonna be here for a long time. Don't worry though, it's not going to be making videos that are 20 minutes long of me covering a single issue as we go along. Are you freaking crazy? That'd be a horrible idea. Instead, this video series will be covering each individual story arc, a few funny bits here and there, my personal feelings and character analysis of each arc and moment when we get to it. Story arcs in comic books are generally structured to be about 6 issues long for the sole purpose of selling trades. So essentially it looks kind of like this. About 6 issues long, and we're going to be covering about one of these every single episode. Now, why is that? It's because these are much easier to pick up, much easier to analyze, because that's how they're marketed. Plus, if you hear me talk really well of a really good story arc that I like and you want to pick up, it'll be much, much easier for you to track down these specific issues if they exist in trade form, and most of the Ultimate comics generally do. But with that out of the way, come back next time and we will begin our descent into the Ultimate Universe with the superhero team that got me into superhero books in the first place. The Ultimate X-Men and their debut story, The Tomorrow People.